Are you sick of all the fees and the hassle of having a checking account at a big bank? Check out our sponsor, Current, using the link below. I'll tell you more about them at the end of the video. As many of you may know, I've mentioned I've been listening to the Howard Stern show for more than 20 years, and he has had recently increasingly interesting comments about Donald Trump, including this week. And the backstory is that Donald Trump and Howard Stern sort of used to be acquaintances. I don't know that I'd say friends, but Donald Trump would regularly appear on Howard Stern's show for years. He would say many outrageous things. He would rate women on scales from 1 to 10, all sorts of different stuff. They don't talk anymore. Howard Stern vociferously supported Hillary Clinton in 2016. And from what I gather, Trump and Howard Stern have not spoken since that time. And Howard Stern had an interesting take about the relationship between Trump and his own supporters when he did a show earlier this week on Sirius XM radio. And the gist of it is that Trump supporters are mostly people that Trump despises, bearing in mind that Donald Trump grew up rich in New York, and his supporters overwhelmingly are the types of folks that Trump would never want at Mar-a-Lago or at his own hotels or around him or whatever the case may be. That is the constituency that has disproportionately made up Trump's base. Rural, white, Midwestern and Southern Americans, for example. I think you get the gist of it. Doesn't apply to everybody, but let's check out the comments and then discuss.
The oddity in all of this is the people Trump despises most love him the most. Think about it. The people who are voting for Trump, for the most part,
they're not people he wants.
Oh my God, he wouldn't even let them in a hotel. He'd be disgusted with them. He doesn't want it. You go look at Mar-a-Lago, see if there's any people that look like you. I'm talking to you in the audience. The Trump voter who, idolizes the guy. He despises you. Despises you. You're someone to grab by the pussy if you're hot. I know Donald. I know him very well. And I don't hate Donald. I hate you for voting for him. I don't hate Donald. Donald's doing his thing. I hate you for voting for him, for not having an intelligence, for not able to see what's going on with the coronavirus, not able to see what the Justice Department is doing. I hate you. I don't want you here. I want to build a wall and throw you the out. I do. I'm for a wall. Not for the Mexicans. For you. That's how I feel. Now, don't call me and start arguing with me. Howard, you're a jerk. You're a libtard or whatever it is you call it. I ain't no libtard. Trust me. I'm hardly a liberal. Hardly. You have no idea how non-liberal I am.
This is pretty spot on in some ways, in the sense that they just don't get it. It is true that the Trump voter typically just doesn't get it. But this is not unique to Donald Trump, and I think it bears a little more exploration. And to understand this, you have to think about personal versus in-group priorities, personal versus in-group frameworks. The 2010 Tea Party is an example that I've talked about before. Social psychologist Jonathan Haidt talked about this. We interviewed him on the program a year or so ago, maybe a little longer. And he's written about this extensively. He wrote about it in the book, The Righteous Mind, which you don't have to agree with everything that Jonathan Haidt writes, but and I don't agree with it 100%, but he writes about this extensively. And the gist is, when you look at individual versus group framing, there is a very long history of people acting in ways that don't seem to be optimized at their individual level, but are optimized for their group. And as a result, they perceive that it will confer benefits to them. And the best way to think about it is with an example. You look at the 2010 Tea Party, all right? 2010 Tea Party ran on lower taxes for the rich, don't tread on me, right? So lower government regulations, lower government involvement, don't regulate business nearly as much, essentially allow more pollution, lower fuel efficiency standards, more oil drilling, fewer welfare benefits and social programs. You look at who was overwhelmingly supporting the Tea Party. You look at the districts where the Tea Party candidate won, sometimes against an incumbent, sort of more traditional Republican. It was overwhelmingly people who were never going to be rich and benefit from those tax cuts for the rich, whose taxes weren't going to go down if Tea Partiers got their way, who live in places that would be ravaged by the very industrial pollution that the Tea Party would have allowed by eliminating government regulations and taking this laissez-faire, more libertarian approach. So you might be able to just simply say, we're on the left. We understand what these dumb people don't. These are just stupid people tricked into voting against their own best interests. And that is so the wrong approach. They may have been tricked, but it's not that they don't understand the policies of the Tea Party. They understand in many cases what the policies are. They've identified that those are the policies that their group favors. Even if they don't immediately see or believe that at any point they will personally benefit, they believe that there will be a sort of trickle-down benefit because this is what their group wants, and that is why they are voting for these policies by voting for the Tea Party. They may not even know why. They may not realize that their group has actually been taken over by elites who want to use them as a tool to achieve what's good for them rather than for the actual voters who are just going to get peanuts or crumbs. But they understand the policies, and in many cases, they've identified the policies as this is what our team or our group wants, and I'm going to vote with the orthodoxy of the group I'm a part of. Apply that to the Trump voter, and you see that there's a similarity in many cases. We've categorized Trump voters before. Some of them don't actually understand what Trump ran on. They have no clue what the policies are, or they don't understand them. Could be because of cognitive limitations. It could be people who lack education and critical thinking skills, simply people who don't watch the news and just sort of like heard vote for Donald Trump. There's people who voted for Trump because they have a limited understanding of the facts. But a lot of Trumpists do understand the policies of Trump. And even if they don't see how it helps them specifically, they're part of the group, except that the people really in Trump's group, which is what Howard Stern points out, are people who hang out at Mar-a-Lago. And a lot of these Trump supporters, I would say the overwhelming majority, are people that politics Trump would never be associated with, would be seeing as people that are fundamentally beneath him. Most Trump voters are people Trump wouldn't be caught dead with, except as part of a photo op or rally now that he's a politician. Now, where I disagree with Howard Stern is this entire, I hate his supporters for voting for him and they're dumb. That's an understandable, visceral reaction, particularly when you see the way that Donald Trump's presidency has ravaged so many aspects of society and culture and the economy and the U.S. standing around the world and on and on and on. But as a practical matter, it falls under the umbrella of what I'd call vote shaming. And it's plenty interesting to do for a broadcast show, and it's compelling and salacious. But I don't think it's a good way to get people to reconsider their votes. Now, at the same time, I don't think that Trump is going to be defeated by convincing his supporters not to vote for him. I've said before, I don't believe that that's the strategy. I think the strategy is mobilize your key constituencies and get people out to vote who already agree with you. But that being said, I don't see any particular advantage to the approach of, if you voted for Trump, you're dumb and I hate you for it. Certainly, we should acknowledge that we believe it was a mistake. It was the wrong decision. But I don't know that there's much to gain from this general umbrella term of what I would call vote shaming, as much as it might be the obvious, visceral, emotional reaction on our side. We're going to keep talking about this and the other stories from today's show on the David Pakman Show Instagram at David Pakman Show. Also, yesterday on my Instagram, I showed everybody my cukes. I have a whole bunch of cucumber plants, which I thought were dead. I thought these seeds are dead. These aren't going to germinate. I've got no sprouts, but I have sprouts now. And I showed my sprouts to everybody yesterday. You can check it out on my Instagram at david.pakman. Nothing better than a coronavirus victory garden, as I'm calling it, even if the victory is going to take a while to get here. Check it out. We'll take a quick break and be back after this. We often talk about the many different ways that big banks take advantage of their customers. And one of our sponsors today is Current, which is an online bank for those of us who are sick of dealing with all of the fees and the nonsense from the big banks. I use Current myself. If you're watching this on YouTube, here's my actual Current debit card that I'm holding up. No minimum balance. They have 24/7 support, no overdraft fees up to $100, and it won't get declined. No ATM fees. You can use over 55,000 ATMs nationwide. And unlike other banks, you receive your direct deposits instantly, which means you'll get paid by your employer up to 2 days sooner. You can deposit checks instantly using your camera phone. And unlike other banks, Current instantly refunds the hold on your card from pumping gas. You can pause your debit card instantly, also really useful in many situations. There are just so many different advantages to ditching the big banks and instead use a bank that puts their members first. It takes 2 minutes to sign up. They'll immediately ship you your debit card for free. Go ahead and get started by clicking the link down below the video.